Good games. That's what this show is called. PC, console, tabletop, or arcade. We want to share what we love with the world. I'm your host, Kyle, and today I'm joined by one of the writers and the showrunner of Season 1 of Blair Witch at Hunt a Killer, Eleanor. Eleanor, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing quite well. I'm really excited to have you on and get a little bit more information about Hunt a Killer and what this amazing product is. Can you just start us off with a little bit about yourself and then dive into what Hunt a Killer is for us?
Yeah, so I have been a writer and kind of project leader, as we call it internally, showrunner at Hunt a Killer for about 2.5 years. I've worked on pretty much all of the various brands and types of product that we do. Um, what we're talking about now, mostly Blair Witch, I was the showrunner on, which means that I led the project in conjunction with a team of writers, designers, game designers, etc. To jump back a minute to explain the product largely, the short answer, kind of soundbite version, is that we sell escape room in a box type experiences on a subscription basis. The slightly more detailed description is that basically we sell interactive, playable, episodic stories that come in a physical form. So every month, depending on what you subscribe to, you get an episode of a 6-episode season that makes a full story. And you will have an objective for every single box that you get that you can solve by playing through the box. Usually takes a couple of hours. And by reading through kind of all the different sort of documents and ephemera that we pack in there. So every episode you get kind of your own full, complete, smaller game that plays into a larger arc of a full game experience.
So with Hunt a Killer, where did that inspiration come from? What stemmed this from the very beginning?
Yeah, so I think at the very, very beginning of the company, the main inspiration was true crime meets ARG. Have something that feels like somebody is really kind of solving a mystery, doing this investigation by getting physical things shipped to their home. And I think that we've stayed pretty true to that, but have kind of over the years gotten even more invested in delivering really, really fully realized stories to people. We now kind of, I think, largely the inspiration that we take for every product really varies from product to product or season to season, but I would say it's largely a lot of procedural crime shows, detective novels. Clearly for Blair Witch, it was very much the Blair Witch franchise, very much the Blair Witch video game specifically, but, also the films, also a lot of the spin-off material that's historically been created and kind of the found footage horror genre in general.
So I've played through one of the boxes. I actually received it as a gift over the holidays, and I have my second box waiting for me. And I actually have a couple more boxes sitting in front of me from you guys to play with. I'm really excited about. But going through my first box and diving into this and getting a stack of paperwork and a couple little knickknacks, essentially, I look at this as a gamer and I'm like, okay, what do I have in front of me, and what is this homework that I've been given essentially in this manila folder? And I start to dive through and start to read through, and there's an interweaving story and connected pieces, and everything tells another part of that story if you take the time to look at it. So what's it been like developing that kind of a content piece where you have this physical box that is in front of you and everything inside of it has to be designed, thought through, connected to your storyline that runs for 6 months for these people when they are playing through this experience?
Yeah. I mean, it's always kind of an interesting and productively challenging process because, yeah, like you said, you get it and you have something that kind of flags okay, maybe this is the first thing I should read. But after that, you can go through all of the stuff in any order you want. So what we kind of have to do and try to do is design it so that you can go through the actual documents you get in any order you want and still pick up the story. So we try and when we're conceptualizing things, we do the thing that I'm sure pretty much anybody who writes longer stories does, where we do a bigger outline and say, okay, here's where we want to have, here's all the big stuff we want to happen. But then on an episode by episode basis, we kind of have this interesting challenge of saying we want to tell things atmospherically, which many other games do, but we want to tell things in this solely atmospheric way where we're only giving you things that a person could reasonably find if they snuck into someone's office, or if they had a contact with the police. So like we have to do that. You know, we have to kind of meld the challenge of making sure everything in the box is realistic and making sure everything in the box successfully tells a story. So we have to be like, okay, you know, here's a detail about this character that we need people to know. How can we put that down on paper in a way that is naturalistic, but that also clearly communicates what it does? And I think like essentially how that happens is like we, you know, have a team sit down and make a lot of very long charts and talk through things. And I think we've found a lot of creative ways to like communicate the things that we want to communicate. So that's been fun.
That's amazing. It's an incredible process to see what your team puts together and what it takes to put one of these boxes together. And originally when I first heard of this, I thought like, oh, okay, Hunt a Killer, it's a box, it's being sent to my door. Does this mean that I'm going to see something like one of those loot boxes or loot crates from back in the day? I didn't expect something to be as interactive as I was getting. And that is something that I feel like is missing from a lot of those things that just show up at your door. There's no incentive to dive deep into the pieces that have been sent to you. And some of the keepsakes that come in the boxes, you can put them on your shelf and remember that experience that you had with those friends when you sat down and played that game. And it's even very cool nowadays that this is the kind of thing that you can share with your friends, even though you may not be able to get together in person still. Still a great way to be able to get some of that shared experience and almost be those detectives together, even though you may not be in the same room at, playing the games that you may like to play, like the tabletop ones and everything. That I think a lot of people will find this same vein very entertaining, but also it's reminiscent of Myst and those old school point and click adventure games to me as well, of designing those interconnected stories. But I really love what everyone over there at Hunt a Killer's done with these physical boxes. They're absolutely beautiful. So diving in a little bit more with Blair Witch and working on the Blair Witch franchise, what has it been like merging Hunt a Killer with Blair Witch?
Yeah, it's been a really, really cool process, kind of like taking our general like approach to like storytelling and gameplay and trying to incorporate like what makes Blair Witch so like cool and creepy and unique as its own thing. And I think it's like thankfully like I kind of went into it having worked on Empty Faces, which was like a previous horror-based brand that Hack did. So I had a little bit of kind of previous experience of like, you know, atmospheric horror via, you know, interactive document based stuff before. So that was like good experience that I had going into it. But I think also like I had the benefit of having a team of writers that was like myself, all very big horror fans. One in particular, Will Rogers, who does a lot of like podcasting and other broadcasting stuff for Hack, is maybe the biggest Blair Witch fan that I have ever met in my life. So that was a very good staffing decision, I guess. But yeah, the interesting challenge and a thing that I think the team addressed really well in trying to take our style of gameplay over to Blair Witch is that Blair Witch, and I think horror in general, kind of really thrives in this area of like ambiguity, like, you know, not giving people all of the answers, or at least not giving people all of the answers immediately. Like, you know, it's scarier, like the things you don't see are scarier than like typically something popping out at you. Which I think like our style of storytelling where, you know, we can't really have something pop out at you, I guess unless we sent people a Jack in the Box. That worked very well. But we also like the other element of our gameplay is that we want people to solve mysteries and we want people to feel like they're progressing in a story. Like every episode has an objective that, you know, people do, and fulfilling that objective pushes the story forward in a way that like makes them integrated into it. And so the challenge going into Blair Witch was like, okay, how do we maintain this feeling of ambiguity and of like kind of powerlessness of horror while still giving people like, you know, the ability to play through the story and to like achieve goals. And the way we did that was kind of like setting it up so that you are helping the protagonist of Blair Witch in both seasons, but in the season I wrote, Rosemary, she has like a goal driving her forward in that her child has gone missing and she needs your help to find them. So like the things you do even if you're not always finding like definitive answers of literally who is the Blair Witch, which I think would undermine like what makes the franchise good. You're finding out specific things about these characters' stories and how they relate to this larger world.
That's absolutely fascinating and a great way to preserve the story. Like you said, there's so much there in that lore and that heritage of Blair Witch because it is a nefariously hallowed horror franchise for at least my entire life. And there's a lot of respect that goes into working with kinds of projects like that. So it's cool to hear how your team tiptoed around some of those things, but we're still able to tell a story at the end of the day that seems like it had a great impact on the audience. I am lucky enough to have, I believe this is your first box from the first season that you produced. So you mentioned that this is Rosemary's story or Blair Witch.
Yes, yeah. Mm.
So this is one of now what is going to be 2 seasons of Blair Witch for Hunt a Killer. And people can still pick these first seasons up and play through the first season. Do you need to play through the first season in order for Blair Witch Season 2 to make sense?
No, I would say that both seasons are interconnected, and same with kind of like season 1 especially is kind of interconnected with the larger franchise and the video game in particular in a lot of like the lore that it draws on, but it's also like playable as its own thing to people who are not so familiar with the franchise. Same with season 2, kind of in its relation to season 1. Its premise is based off of some things that happen in season 1, but you don't need to have played through season 1 to understand it. And logistically, yes. So the last episode, the 6th episode of season 1 is shipping, I believe, this month. So season 2 will start shipping out next month. So yeah, it would be a good time to, I guess, jump in if you wanted to start playing season 1, because there's a large backlog accessible, I suppose.
Well, I have got this open. And I have what looks like a stack of ancient documents and a notebook now in front of me to start exploring. I've got what appears to be a Liam Kent's beautiful notebook here and a pen to write with, so make sure I can keep my notes. Is that a tooth?
That is a tooth.
Am I the tooth fairy now? Like, is that what has happened? I've become the tooth fairy. I've been visited. Okay, this is reverse. And I have... Wow, this is some intense documentation. Like, I've got Woodland Academy. I've got... Is this a map in here?
Yeah.
Welcome to the historic village of Burkittsville. This is amazing. Holy smokes, this is so cool. I feel like I'm about ready to go on an adventure. Oh my goodness. All right, so give me the rundown of what I'm looking at here. And as someone who's never played a Hunt a Killer, especially for me not doing the Blair Witch stuff yet, what am I like really looking at here in this box?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the premise of the first episode, which I don't think would be me giving away spoilers or anything, is that this woman, kind of Rosemary Kent, reaches out to you because months ago her son Liam vanished from the town of Burkittsville, which is a town that is canonically very close to the woods in which the Blair Witch franchise takes place. And so Liam is kind of like a troubled kid, so a lot of people write him off as a runaway, but she kind of gets this sense and this feeling that like there's something way more wrong than that, and she needs your help to get him back, so she's reached out to you as like a private investigator. So your objective for the first episode is to kind of pick up on Liam where the trail went cold, and in doing that, like you explore kind of like the logistics of like the way that the town is laid out, which we've fictionalized a bit, but the shape and size is still very similar to the actual town. And you go through like his journal. Like if you kind of open that up, it's like this whole handwritten journal that has a few hidden things in it that I won't go into. And so you kind of try and get a sense of like what his mindset was. You find whatever messages he may or may not have hidden in there. And then you use that information to try and track him down and like see where he could be. And then once you figure that out, you send that to his mother so that she can pick up the case. And what happens then is essentially revelations occur and the story continues.
Oh man, I'm really excited to get my hands in on this one and start diving into the story with my friends. This is going to be so much fun. these kinds of experience, they really do make me want to get out the cork board and start putting thread in between two different points and making sure I'm not losing anything. And especially where you have to wait for a month between boxes if you're following episodically. I mean, you could forget. You got to take good notes. You got to be a good investigator at this point, right?
Yeah. That's why we usually try to like give people a notebook or something in the first episode, because we know that there's kind of stuff you want to keep track on. And we also have recaps available online for pretty much all of our products for people who are like, it's been a month, what happened last time again? That's pretty accessible too.
When there's a deeper mechanism of gamification to this that Hunt a Killer has implemented on the back end. So you get this wonderful box and you have all of these physical things in front of you and this story to explore, but there's also more content that's been produced behind the scenes. And I hear there's even a podcast that kind of coincides with content.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sorry for cutting you off a little bit there. One thing, that we do for, I think, most, if not all of our seasons is that if people give us their email, we have kind of this content that comes in the weeks between every box. So usually you'll get like, a box, 3 other pieces of additional content, another box. And what that is usually is stuff that you're getting from the main character or from the world of the story that isn't necessary to gameplay, but that is, it's kind of like additional supplemental stuff that kind of can keep you in the world or kind of up on what's like going on in real time in like the world of the story while you're waiting on the next thing to show up. So like that, depending on what season it is, that can be like forum posts from like a fictionalized like social media that takes place in the world, or just like update from the person that you're talking to, like, I like found this weird thing, or I'm following up on this weird thing. And I think people tend to like that. We've gotten pretty good responses to that.
I think that's an amazing integration, especially coming from a very hardcore gaming background and knowing what it's like to have that next little bit of information that I want to push out there and see if it's right, and then be able to go a little bit back and dig a little bit deeper and keep guessing, checking, or maybe have that outlet that gives me a little bit more information or story behind some of the things that I love. That's right up all of our alley. So that's amazing that your team is taking the time to develop extra assets like this to help satisfy the time in between boxes, because there is a physical shipping delay between them. Even if you complete them pretty quick in succession, you still only get them once a month as a part of the package, unless you buy them all at once and binge them, is my understanding, which is a total option for those of you that are looking to catch up on some of these Hunter Killer boxes. Which, how many seasons do you have out now?
Ooh, so I believe that there are either 9 or 10 seasons out now. If the 10th season isn't out by the time this airs, then it will be very soon. And we just started in production on the 11th, so a bunch. And then 2 of Hack Horror, and then also several, I think currently 3, soon to be 4 retail boxes that are these kind of one-off experiences in stores.
Oh, fascinating. I love that idea, because that's a great way to get people hooked with that first experience. Maybe even come to a DreamHack, stop by a booth, maybe buy a box to play with your friends at the show kind of thing. I would love to see that one of these days. But for now, Eleanor, thank you so much for your time and coming onto our show. Before we let you go, can you tell everyone where they can find and get their hands on some Hunt a Killer boxes right now?
Yeah, for sure. So just huntakiller.com, or for Hunt a Killer Mystery with all of our kind of more detective-based seasons, huntakiller.com/Blair Witch for horror. I also have a discount code that I to plug, which is DreamHack25 for 25% off a first box in any subscription.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for providing a discount code for the community, DreamHack25. Use that code at huntakiller.com. Get yourself one of these boxes and go through this experience. And let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought of your first box and if you're going to be getting some more. But Eleanor, thank you again so much for your time today, coming on and chatting with us about Hunt a Killer and how you were showrunner for season 1 of Blair Witch and what it was like to work on some of these projects. But for now, everyone, thank you for joining us on Good Games, and we'll catch you next time.